Good morning, everybody. Wisconsin's 25th District Senator Romaine Quinn is our very special guest today, Thursday, August 31st, 2023. For DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, and you're watching Dryden Wire Live, presented by... You know what? This is a future script. We don't have a presenter right now, but starting next month, we're going to. That's a little tease. You have to tune in next month, because we finally have a presenter for the show. Senator Quinn joins us on the last Thursday of every month right here on Dryden Wire. So if you've missed any of our previous chats, you can find a recording of all of those on our website at DrydenWire.com, on our right here on our Facebook page, or on YouTube. Just go to YouTube, search Dryden Wire, or it's youtube.com/DrydenWire. Also, if you have a question for Senator Quinn or a topic that you would like for us to discuss, let us know in the comments during today's live show. Romaine, good morning. How are you?
Morning. Last day of August.
Yeah, holy cow.
What the heck happened?
I know.
Yeah.
I know. It's going by so fast. Kenneth had his first day of school yesterday. Riley is going to be, she's a sophomore, so her first day was today. So this is the first day all summer. Like, Drew's at work, like, there's nobody here. I'm going to get so much done, or it's going to be the least productive day I've ever had. I'm not really sure how it's going to play out yet.
So you really do celebrate back to school day. It's like
big time.
Empty house day.
Yeah, because, when the kids are around, it's like, hey, I have a question about this, and a question about this, and a question about this. I'm like, I'm trying to work. Just because I work from home doesn't mean I'm not doing anything.
Yeah. I'm trying not to do anything today. Can you please leave me alone?
Yeah. And good morning, Nathaniel or Nate. Wow, it's good to see him. I haven't seen you in a while, Nate. Hope things are going well for you. So this is going to be an awesome show, or a tire fire, one of the two. Because for the first time in forever, I don't have a show flow at all. That may have been because I stayed up late having a fire with the kids in Jerusha last night.
I literally told you to go to bed.
You did. I'm like, all right, I do have a show tomorrow.
Yeah.
But also, looking back on some of our last shows, it's been really topic heavy, specific things, and there's a lot to get to. And there was a lot to unpack, but a lot of things that were going on. So it's kind of nice where I have no nothing written down to talk about, no questions, anything. So there we go. This could be terrible. Dangerous. It could be great. I don't know which one's going to be. If anyone has a question for
a tire fire, tire fire, I got to use that.
A tire fire, yeah.
Not a dumpster fire, a tire fire.
It's got to be a tire fire, because that's worse, I think.
If your tires are on fire, that's not good. So.
Right. So what do you want to talk about? What's going on with you? Have you been going down to Madison, or is it kind of a slow time?
Yeah, no, it's usually busier across the district. Summertime is when a lot of us legislators get to finally be back home and do all the things we miss out on when we are in Madison legislating and all the things we do. So I know last week, Dave Armstrong and I had a blast. We bopped over to the Blue Hills Sportsman's Club. They had like a Second Amendment rally day, and the club was showing off the fact that they are now the host of these chairs for Accessibility Wisconsin. So it's a group in Wisconsin that buys these all-terrain, super sweet chairs, mobile chairs. So if you have a mobility issue, you can still get in the outdoors. And so let's say Ben Dryden falls down, breaks his ankle, but he loves the outdoors, which I know you don't. So this is a different Ben Dryden. But you could go to the club and say, hey, I'd love to use one of these chairs for a weekend. My family's going hiking and I can't go with. You can go there free of charge, grab one of these chairs, comes in a trailer, and you can take these all weekend for free and join your family and enjoy the outdoors.
What?
So they're on tracks. They're really sweet. I got to drive one. I just want one because I'm lazy. Not that I have mobility issues. But so you should invest in one, a Dryden Wire mobility chair.
I'm totally down. Hey, if we can throw some advertising on it, I'll support them.
Yeah, but it's a great opportunity. People don't realize it's not even just about hunting. It's just access to the outdoors. You could be, a young child that has mobility issues. You could be an older gentleman that would love to bow hunt again, but you just can't get to your stand. You could drive this out into the woods.
What kind of chair is this? Is it like a wheelchair?
It's like a big wheelchair, and it's got tracks on it. So it literally can go anywhere.
Shut up.
Yep.
Yeah, I just want one.
Yeah, I know. It's set up to like hold a fishing pole or a crossbow or a rifle if you want to do actual, those kinds of activities. Otherwise, you can just take it anywhere. So it's free. It's literally free. So if you know anyone with mobility issue that said, hey, they'd love a weekend away, you just call up over to Tim at the Blue Hill Sportsman's Club. You get on the calendar, you go there and you pick it up, and you can take it for a week, a weekend. I think they've sent one out west before. Someone went elk hunting, so it's a pretty cool opportunity. So I wanted to put a plug in for them.
Yeah, no kidding. That is awesome.
They've got 26 chairs across the state. Their goal is to have one in every county and a site in every county. So it's pretty cool.
Well, if they want to send us, like, if they want a news release, press release, something like that, sheepers, they should send us something like that. We should put it up on Dryden.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, they're always looking for opportunities. They raise money. They actually said, I asked them if it's easy to raise money. I would think it is for that. They said it's actually kind of difficult because until you experience a mobility issue, it's hard to latch on to the issue, right? So I'm like, well, we shouldn't all wait till we can't walk to care about this. So it's a cool opportunity for people to get back outdoors.
Blue Hills Sportsman Club. Where is that?
Just outside of Canton. So just a few miles outside of Cameron.
Okay.
As like you're heading towards Ladysmith, they're tucked away on a few back roads. So great club, great opportunity. They've got rifle range, pistol range. I got to shoot a 50 cal. That was the coolest thing ever.
What?
I would not like to be on the receiving end of that thing.
No, I've only used those in like Call of Duty because I don't like guns. It's fine that other people like guns. That's fine. I don't care.
It kicked as bad in Call of Duty.
What?
Well, I don't think it kicked as bad in Call of Duty.
No. I mean, like the controller will vibrate a little bit, but I don't think that's quite the same thing. Yeah, but those things are freaking awesome.
Close.
You got to shoot one?
I did. Someone owned one, and they brought it that day for the event, and I think he had a device on the end of it, so it helped pull the gun forward when you shoot, so it doesn't actually break your shoulder. But standing back and watching someone shoot it, and just the whole building, foof, and the dust just comes off everywhere. Like the muscle behind that gun was pretty incredible. So to be on the other end of that, thank you. Yeah, do whatever the American military instructs you to do.
Hey, going back to the those chairs, I don't know why this made me think of it, but on our Positive Tuesday Ben and 50 show with Sheriff Fitzgerald on Tuesday, towards the end of the show, I brought up something that I had seen in an article or somewhere, that there is a bill being apparently a bipartisan bill being floated around. I think the article referenced 2018. This was also discussed. Now, I don't know. You're in the Senate, so I don't know if this is all in the Assembly right now or where this is. But apparently, as of right now, you can have an open container of alcohol on an ATV or UTV, which I literally did not know that until Tuesday. I just didn't. I mean, we see UTVs driving by all the time, and the whole time they could just be slamming beer. I mean, you can't still be over 0.08, but whatever. How do you really know? I didn't know that was a thing. And I guess there is this bill being now talked about. We need to make that illegal. Are you familiar with it? In 2018, when you're in the Assembly, were you a part of this? Where are we on this? What is your view? What is your take?
So I think back then there was really questions on so if you are on a designated trail or not. I see the light creeping in from my window, so I don't have skin issues. It's just light. But if you're on a designated trail, you couldn't have the open container. But if you're not on a designated trail, could you? So like, let's say I'm ice fishing and there's a designated snowmobile trail that goes all the way across. If I can have a beer in my side-by-side when I'm going on my next tip-up, but what if I cross the trail? Is it illegal only when I cross that trail real quick and then it's not illegal? And so I think there's I get the idea that you shouldn't be drinking and driving on a piece of equipment, but I will say I do know a lot of people. We have beautiful trails all over Barron County, all over northern Wisconsin, and there are a lot of people who will pack a cooler and they will go and find a beautiful spot on top of a hill and they'll pull over and they'll get out and they'll share a beer and enjoy it, and then they'll head to the next spot or something, right? But I get it. Like, you shouldn't be drunk on any piece of equipment. So my only thing is, if they don't drink on the trail, they're still driving bar to bar, right? And so it'd be interesting to see those that get in accidents or the fatalities, which we hope never happen. Did they have an open container in their machine at the time they crashed, or were they just over the limit from going bar to bar to bar for 12 hours, right?
Sure.
And so is there a way to try to crack down on those who are foolish on the trails? I mean, obviously we should do a better job. I don't know if if that actually solves the problem, considering people are literally driving trails to get to the next bar anyway.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I think there's some of the details that have to be worked out.
The DNR, and I think we talked about this on Tuesday, the DNR had we put it on our website about a week ago, that in 2022, I believe on ATVs there was like 13 deaths, and UTVs 8. I think there's about 21 between the two of deaths. Sure. And that was for the whole year in the entire state of Wisconsin, which, no kidding, seems like actually a really low number to me. Considering how many ATVs and UTVs there was literally only 21 deaths, or reported deaths, I guess. Maybe there's others that nobody knows about. But there was only about 21, and about just over half, or about half, were alcohol related, which, again, seems like a very low number to me. Right. So it didn't seem like it was a pressing issue. However, if that is trending in an upward, trending upward, and we're seeing more and more and more of those, then okay, I get it. And maybe it's a feel-good thing, too. And also, I don't know. It is kind of weird that you can, I mean, some of these things are like $50,000 for a UTV. It's basically like my Jeep in the same price. And you can just drive around everywhere and be drinking. Now, again, it doesn't mean that you're drunk. It just means you have an open container in the vehicle at the time. I really don't care what anyone decides to do with it. But if it was presented... What's that?
I could see where, as more of our trails, I think Nathaniel just mentioned that too in a comment, as more of our trails are becoming roads, there's a big difference there too. Now, should you be able to have an open container on your machine on a road? No. No. I mean,
we can all agree on that one.
Otherwise, I want one in my truck, right? So, I mean, how could you drive one?
Right, no kid.
So I think that's where maybe you could definitely start drawing a distinction, and there are a lot of trails that weave on and off of roads. They cross roads. They are roads for miles and miles until they get to the actual next trail. So that's something where maybe we could start looking at.
I'm sure you don't know, because kind of find out Fitzy didn't even know, and I don't know. Can you have an open container on a snowmobile? And I didn't think about it until after the show that I'm like, I don't think that's really probably a thing. I've been on a snowmobile before. It's 10 degrees out. It's freezing. And you're doing 50 miles an hour down a trail. You're probably not, pounding one with one hand and steering with the other. I mean, it's not quite the same as like an ATV here. Right? Yeah. So I don't even know if that's a thing. Do you happen to know? Because I still haven't figured it out if that's actually illegal to have an open container on a snowmobile.
I don't know the answer to
either.
that.
Again, I don't think it happens very often.
You would be a champ trying to find a way to be able to drink and drive a snowmobile. Not a champ. I shouldn't say that because someone's going to say, "Oh, Romaine's encouraging."
No, I'm just saying that would be pretty incredible to see that. All right, so what else? What else is going on down in Madison, or bills that you guys are working on, or anything else going
on? So last week I was down there to testify on one of the bills I introduced for. Again, continuing our effort to expand broadband to the farthest reaches of our neighborhoods in rural Wisconsin. So right now, it makes total sense because it's government, right? That if Mosaic gets a grant to build out in Spooner, the government views that grant as taxable income. And so here we spend state dollars to provide a grant to help you reach the furthest person because there's not a rate of return. We have to help subsidize that. And then we're going to turn around and take a part of that back and tax it, right? So why don't you just let someone have the whole amount? Why are we taxing money back that we wanted to give to you in the first place for internet, right?
Who gets taxed?
The entity does. So let's say Mosaic's going to do a build out around some loop, and it's a $300,000 project. They're going to put in $150. The state's going to put in $150, and they're going to connect 50 homes around this loop.
Got it.
At the end of the year, the state's going to come back and say, "Oh, that $150 we gave you, that's income. So now we're going to take corporate tax off of that and take it back." So why does it make sense for us to give an entity money to try to solve a problem, and then we're going to take some of it back at the end of the year in taxes, right? So it doesn't make sense. It's just out in one pocket.
That's like getting a Christmas bonus and then having it taxed and deducted off of your January paycheck.
Right. Yeah, something
That
like that.
seems a
Yep.
little odd. I mean, not quite the full I mean, do they end up getting all that $150,000 back in that scenario, or that equal amount, the total amount of the grant? Do they end up getting all of that back through taxes?
No, it's just they would pay their corporate tax rate on that as
On the
income.
Okay. So you're
Yep.
trying to say this isn't, what are we doing?
So we said, why are we taxing grants that we're giving you to solve a problem? Why are we taking some of it back at the end of the year when we want you to put that in fiber into the ground? And so we're going to apply that to both federal money and state money. And we have about $1 billion in BEAD money. It's the BEAD program coming from the feds for internet expansion. So over the next 5 years, we're going to have 200 million a year in federal dollars to expand broadband. So instead, again, of us taxing that, why aren't we letting you, the provider, keep it and put more miles into the ground, which is the point of the program to begin with? And so just by not taxing that, we'll actually put about $76 million back into the ground and not spend a penny more. We're just not going to take it back from them. And so if we pass the bill before the starting of next year, over the course of 5 years, we'll have invested another 70, I believe 72 to $76 million into broadband, which again, they use to leverage that too. Sometimes there's a private match from landowners or customers, and then sometimes there's larger matches from the actual provider. And so that 76 or 72 million could really leverage another 70 million. So we get to be talking about, maybe another couple $100 million of miles of broadband to our most rural, far-reaching neighbors, and it doesn't cost you, the taxpayer, another dime. So little things like that, we're always working.
Little things make a big difference. When you have like the Mosaics of the world, not specifically Mosaic.
Yep.
Do you have any knowledge that some of these companies, and like a Mosaic, where they are a little more hesitant about wanting a grant or working because they know of the tax? Is this like a deal breaker for some? Or it really isn't necessarily about that. It's what we could do with that extra anyway.
Yeah, they won't not apply. But I know Mosaic, for instance, I think they would have saved $300,000, and they're building that into their plan, right? So if I know I'm going to go so many miles and it costs me this much money, I'm going to need so much more because I'm going to have to pay part of that back at the end of the year. And so those are real people that we're not connecting, that we scale projects back because we know there's a corporate tax on top of these grants, which just doesn't make any sense.
No. Is that being received well? Is this a Republican thing? Is it a bipartisan thing? Or is it right now? It's not anywhere right now. It's just thing.
It should be bipartisan. We just had the hearing. Some representatives from Mosaic actually came down and talked. It's always great to have some people from northern Wisconsin come down and inject a little common sense into that building occasionally. So yeah, it should be bipartisan.
You just slid that one. Yeah, I heard it.
It should be a no-brainer, like I like to say. But
Dave has a question here, so we'll get to that. But I don't want to forget, since you brought up taxes, I thought I saw earlier this week something about a tax rebate, something going on, giving money back or something. I don't understand that because I thought this was all finished and over with. But I'll get to that in a second. First, Dave Wilson had a question. Senator, what are your thoughts on the real estate transfer fees revenue sharing formula issue? So first, if you wouldn't mind, Romaine, what is he even talking about? I've never even heard of that.
Right. So when I go to sell your house, Ben, you will pay a transfer tax to the state of Wisconsin. And right now, a portion of that stays locally with the Register of Deeds office, but a bulk of it goes to Madison, to the state. I think it's an 80-20 split right now. So there's been bills introduced saying, why don't we do a 50-50 share or a 60-40 share? And it would give more money to the counties who are actually doing the job, doing the transaction, recording the deeds, recording the transfer of the sale, collecting the money. The state doesn't do anything, they just charge the tax. So why doesn't the county get to keep more of that? And so the bills didn't go anywhere because we were talking about shared revenue as an overhaul. And then until that shook out to see what is everyone getting in increases, do we have to do that? So I think there is, especially for our smaller counties that still struggle even after their shared revenue bumps because the tax base is just not growing. And we are poorer, we're more rural, and there's less people, there's less money to pull from. The pool's just
you just described Burnett, Washburn, Sawyer, and Rusk County.
Bayfield, Ashland, yep. Yeah, you name it. So could we do that? So there's been a different bill that said, well, could we cut taxes and give counties a larger share? So instead of a 3% tax, do 2% and then do 50-50 again. So it would be less money, but it'd be more than they're getting today. So we could argue, hey, it's a win for homeowners who are selling. They keep more of their own value. It's a win for the local counties doing the transaction because they keep more of that money. And it would be a cut to the state, but the state has extra revenues. The idea is, how do we get
Sure.
you locals more revenue?
And with the tax
without
levy, I mean, how are when you go around, because you're all are a part, well, at least in our coverage area, it's all of them, right? I mean, Barron, Washburn, a little bit of Sawyer, I think, Burnett. I mean, this is like our coverage area here in rural northwest Wisconsin. When you go around and you talk to, well, the Dave Wilsons, because he's not just the Shelly Police Chief, he's also the board chair. When you talk to people like the Dave Wilsons of the world or clerk of courts offices, board supervisors, how are the counties doing right now in rural northwest Wisconsin? And are we, as in our legislators, doing enough to help and support these small counties that don't have the revenue tax base that some of the larger counties do?
Well, I think we're perpetually behind on infrastructure for sure. That didn't go away with the shared revenue bump. So that's something what we're constantly trying to play catch up or to help our most rural areas reach. I think we're reaching a crisis point with our EMS services, our volunteer fire department services. And I think that's something that the state is going to have to play a greater role, whether we like it or not. And I know there's angst among some in other parts of the state thinking it's a local issue. Locals should pay for it. But when you leave Racine or Waukesha or Ozaukee County and you come to the cabin and you swing an axe for the first time in your life and you hit your leg, you're assuming someone's going to come pick you up when you call 911. And there are parts of our district that there will come a time where an ambulance does not show up. And I don't think that's something that's acceptable to the public in general. So those kinds of issues are always ongoing. We're always tweaking them. I know we try to bolster EMS service in the shared revenue program. We took a $2 million grant program, bumped it to $25 million to help with training and other services for those rural departments. But it's never enough, right? So there's always that need. So I would say there's more breathing room coming into the next budget or two for a lot of these counties, just with the bumps they got in shared revenue, but the problems aren't solved long term yet. And that particular bill, in terms of sharing a larger share of the real estate transfer tax, could be part of an answer to that. Because I've always, instead of trying to overhaul or reinvent the wheel, I try to look at where are counties getting money now, where are EMS services getting money now, and how do I get you more of the stream you're already getting, right? So instead of trying to invent a new tax, invent a new program, invent something that I have to sell, right? Use something they're already getting and say, how can I get you a bump? Because at the end of the day, money's fungible, right? If I can get you more over here, it still helps you over here. And so it doesn't matter how you get it. I just got to get you more revenue. So that's how I try to approach those things too.
Well, we have another question here. This is from Nate. Is there any hope of fixing our funding for our schools in northern Wisconsin?
Well, Nate, how much time do you have?
Yes.
So this last budget, we actually made really good strides on leveling the playing field for our schools across the state. And so when you looked at Spooner, Superior, Ashland, Turtle Lake, Cameron, Drummond, I think, and a couple of those others, they were locked in a amount of spending that was below the rest of the state, below average. When levy limits came in, when per pupil limits came in, they were already frugal districts and they were locked in, and they've been perpetually behind every time. And so when we talk about school funding, we shouldn't just give everyone the same every year because every district is different than the next. Yet we expect these districts to compete for staff, for schools testing scores, for class sizes. And how do you compete if my neighbor next door spends $1,000 more per student, $1,500 more per student, right? Or doesn't have the transportation costs I have because I'm rural versus urban where half your kids are walking to school anyway and there's no busing costs. So when we try to fund schools, we try to solve problems. And this budget really did that. So we raised the revenue ceiling for our low spenders from 10,000 to 11. And unfortunately, what happens is not to get too far in the weeds, but if you're real rural, you're really large, you have a lot of property value, and so a bulk of your school is funded by local property taxes. But instead of just raising that to 11,000 per student and allowing that all to fall on the backs of property taxes, we also on the backside sunk about $500 to $600 million into property tax relief to try to take a bite out of that increase that we would see from some of that school spending. So kind of complicated to understand for someone that's not in it, but we caught a lot of schools up who were disadvantaged, and the state stepped in and helped take a bite out of that property tax increase, so it's not all falling on the local shoulders at the same time. So our schools are going to be in a much, much better position heading into this school year than they were last year, by far.
So this was a lot of it was plugging some holes, getting everything kind of leveled. Is there more that needs to be done? I mean, if you had, I wouldn't say unlimited money, there's always kind of a cap there, but I mean, right now, where do you think the state of funding for education is right now for our schools? Should there be more? And if so, where does that come from? And how do you distribute that? Let's say just you could actually pick a school. Does it go to the school district and they can decide if they want to give their teachers raises, if they want to fix a gym or whatever? Where would that money go to? Where would you prefer it go to?
Sure. So all the money will flow to the districts, and the school boards decide that, right? I actually had a teacher stop down in Madison. I think she's on her 25th, 26th year, and she teaches in one of the districts that's always been a low spender. And she said, Romaine, I just got the biggest raise I've ever gotten in my career, 6% ever, in my whole 27 years here at this district, because they're finally getting caught up to be able to compete with their neighbors. And so for certain schools, it really was a game changer. And so it depends on what school you ask, right? So I had, even when the COVID dollars left, all this federal money is now gone. I had some districts that said, hey, we knew it was one-time money. We didn't hire staff with it. We're not hurting. Yes, we'd love the money, right, but we don't have to let anybody go. There's other schools that said we hired all staff because we wanted counselors or things like that we thought were more important than, physical supplies or things like that. And now they're in a tough spot. We're like, how do we fund that salary? And it's like, you knew that money was one time. I don't know what to tell you. Now we'll work on our budget so the state can pick up more of that tab. So it really depends on what superintendent you're talking to. Some are super happy and grateful. A couple sent me still some letters that weren't very nice, but it just depends what neck of the woods you're in and how your district is historically operated.
So when you you're a Republican, which means you are, anti-public schools, right? You're anti-education, don't want to fund anything. Seriously, this is ever since Scott Walker's Act 10, it is now Republican. Oh, you're anti-public school. Is that still out there? And is there a little bit of that is true? Maybe not necessarily anti-schools, but yeah, we're not going to, if we were Democrats, we would just dump every dime we had just into that, which would hurt other areas. When you hear that, I'm sure you do, that, oh, you're a Republican, I know where you stand on schools and public schools. What do you say to that?
Yeah, that's frustrating. I think there's some out there. I think there are Republicans out there that hate public schools. No doubt about it. There's Republicans out there, I think, that would love to abolish government schools, public schools. I'm not one of them. I've never been one of them. And especially in rural areas in northern Wisconsin, our schools are at the center of our communities.
That's right.
They're the lifeblood of our communities. They're a place that we all identify with. They're not some evil entity we have to constantly combat. Now, are there issues in some of those schools in terms of oversight, school boards, what's in the classroom, et cetera? Yeah, we're going to have that. And those are things we need to address. But yeah, I used to get that a lot early on, especially in the newer parts of the district. There's always that sentiment, but that's why I go out of my way. I go to school board meetings. I go to them. I ask for time to speak to them because I think there were some issues in one of my districts up north. I won't name it. And there were some comments said about what I thought about what funding they should get. And I'm like, where in the world did you get that? And so I said, make some time for me. I'm coming up and I'm going to address you to your face at your school board meeting so you can hear exactly what I'm advocating for in the upcoming budget. What would it do for your school? And just dispel some of those rumors. So a lot of those, you have to go straight to the root of it. You have to go meet people and talk to them and explain where you're at. And maybe we don't agree. You want $4 million and I think you should be fine with $2 million. that's fine, but at least have the conversation. I have never, ever voted to cut public school funding since I've been in office, ever. And I'm sure it'll be on a lit piece next time, too, that I have done it. But it's just not true.
Yeah.
And so I care about our public schools. I care about our kiddos that are in any school in our part of the state. And I think we should get a fair shake at our shot of education dollars, just like any other part of the state.
So I want to. We've had some questions, but I want to go back to this because I don't want to forget. Taxes. There's something about a budget. There was a proposal. I should have had that up, but again, I didn't really prep for this show this morning. But I thought maybe it was the assembly. Maybe it was. I can't remember who. But it was something about Wisconsin and Republicans about giving money back, taxes, or the budget stuff. And what? I thought this was already over. What's going on?
So if you recall, Ben, in the budget, we had a significant income tax cut that was proposed. And the governor vetoed basically it all out except the lowest two brackets, I think. And so the problem with that is a vast majority of filers are in the third highest bracket because it goes from, I think, $32,000 a year to $400,000. And so he cut that tax cut for that bracket. So I get there's ideological arguments of not touching the top tax bracket. I would argue we have one of the highest top earning brackets in the Midwest. And if we want to be competitive, even with Illinois, and we have a lot of border states, and if we want people to move here, why would they move here if they're going to pay more? A high earner in Illinois is going to pay less in income taxes than in Wisconsin. That's shameful, in my opinion. And so the idea was, how do we lower all rates a little bit, getting us a little more competitive with the surplus that we had? So governor vetoes the top brackets out. So the assembly, not the Senate, they kind of ran with it, and we're reviewing it now, wants to come back and cut the third bracket, not the top, but the one where basically everyone falls into. You and I don't think you make more than $430 grand.
It's not even close.
But if you do, awesome. I'm happy for you. You shouldn't be penalized for that. We want to lower that from, I think they said 5.5% to 4.5%. And at the same time, we would reduce the tax on retirement income. So we lose a lot of snowbirds in this state. We have a lot of people that would love to stay here longer, or they would love to keep the residences as a Wisconsinite. But instead, they become residents of Arizona, of Florida, of Texas, because they don't have income taxes or their taxes are lower. So if I'm a teacher and I retire, and I know I'm going to get $45,000 a year from a pension, why would I keep my residence in Wisconsin and be a taxpayer in Wisconsin and pay 5.5% on that when I could just, if I already go to Florida for 3 months out of the year, why don't I change my residence and I become a Florida resident and I pay nothing on that? So I'll keep 100% of my retirement income, and all the state of Wisconsin gets nothing. And I may even end up spending more time in Florida than Wisconsin because I'm already a resident. So the idea is, I think the assembly plan calls for the first $100,000 in retirement income would not have a state tax, or it would be lowered, one of the two. So it would be in a greater plan. We're going to lower all rates for working Wisconsinites, and we're going to limit the tax impact for those of you that are retired and would love to maintain your residency as a Wisconsinite instead of basically being forced into becoming a Floridian. So trying to address that too. And we have the money to do it. I think we're going to end the budget next year with over $4 billion. This would be a $3.2 billion cut. And again, we've got the ongoing revenues to pay for it. We are not cutting this and hoping we have money next year for it.
Right.
Our economy continues to grow. We continue to budget conservatively. And when the state takes more money than they need from you than we budgeted for, we should give it back to you. That's a novel concept for some in Madison, but it's not Madison's money. It's your money. And so we want you to continue to have more of that in your pocket after we fund core functions in government.
So I literally just got an email because we're on the press release announcement from Robin Vos. Now I know you're in the Senate, so that's like your old, I'll just say boss, but maybe not technically boss, but whatever.
He was not my boss.
I know. I'm just going to say it though. And it's the headline here. I haven't even read it yet, but the Republican proposal aims at expanding access to quality child care. Speaker Robin Vos and Assembly Republicans announced the Choices in Child Care package aimed at helping families afford child care and increasing accessibility across our states. The average monthly cost for a full-time child care, $915. The Choices in Child Care package includes legislation that would create a child care reimbursement account, establish a revolving loan fund to help renovate current care centers, and help new centers open, create a new classification of in-home childcare centers, boost capacity, and bring provider regulations in line with our neighboring states. Obviously, this is in the assembly, but I'm just assuming that you guys all kind of talk and you kind of know what things are coming up. Have you heard about that yet? Because I literally just got the email.
Yeah, so the first piece of that you read off is actually my bill, working with Representative Joy Gobin. I think I pronounced her name right. Joy, I apologize if you're watching and I didn't. So she
She's
was
not
actually
watching. Nobody watches this show except
she
for
was
yeah.
she was actually a child care provider in her past life. And so she's had a number of ideas being in the industry saying, how can we help those? So she, like many, are in the mindset that think, why should I have to pay for your child care? Why should I have to pay for your child's child care, right? So like when she said, when we had 3 kids or something like that, I quit work because it got kind of expensive. And then I opened a child care operation in my home. So I took on other people's home to have income. I saved money. I've been not sending my children away. And that's how my family made it work. But no one paid my way. No one paid my children's way. And so we thought, how can we get creative and open up more opportunities and help families actually afford the cost? So there's this other plan out there, child care accounts. We've talked about this a couple times on your show, where they want the state to spend $340 million a year and just give direct checks to child care centers, and only the licensed ones, not unlicensed ones. So there is a lot of angst and heartburn of just sending monthly checks to your business. Why can't instead we find ways to help parents afford the cost of your service? I would rather give families a check. You choose where you want to send your kid to childcare and help you afford that, versus we just arbitrarily cut you a monthly check because this is the business that you're in. And
all right, slow down. I want to make sure I understand this, because some of the stuff you talk about, I'm just like, yep, I have no idea. I'm so lost. So okay, so let's just use some random numbers. So instead of sending a licensed childcare provider, throw out a number. I don't care what it is. It doesn't have to be even accurate. Like $5,000 a month ish.
I think it depends on the size and how many kids you take. I know.
Okay, so instead of sending them the money, which would help their business, of course, right?
Yep.
But how does that actually? It doesn't actually help the parents, is what you're saying?
Well, it does, because they could argue I'm keeping my rates down, or
we assume that they are.
Yep. And I would, so the only thing, when the government subsidizes that, we're just hiding the true cost of that service. So let's figure out, what does it actually cost for a childcare provider to earn a worthy wage that they deserve? And then what would that rate be? And then how can we better help the families pay that rate versus us, like I said, just sending you a check every month to subsidize that rate? So there are families in the state that could pay more for childcare, and there's some that can't, and there's some that are barely able to afford where they're at. But if you just send a check to every center, the parents that could pay more are not paying more. And does it open up more slots? It maintains what we have. It doesn't open more slots necessarily. So, I get it. Childcare providers are not paid what they're worth, especially those with higher education, period. There's no doubt about that. But they're not all the same either. And so I've gotten a lot of flack from some providers that will say every child should be in a licensed facility. There are a lot of children that are with grandparents. There's a lot of children with aunt and uncles. There's a lot of children with, elderly women that still run childcare out of their homes. And I think they do a great job. And do they have the latest and greatest activities that they're putting in front of your kids with the latest research? Probably not. But for me, I'm going to teach my kids a lot of that at home. I just want to know that someone's keeping my kids safe, and that they love them, and that they're, fed a decent meal 3 times a day until I come get them. So I think there's different expectations parents have. There's different expectations I think government has. And so I don't think this one size fits all. If you're a licensed facility, you get a check every month. That's going to solve everything. So I think there's other ways to try to skin the cat.
Well, earlier you had mentioned, when we were talking about taxes, that you compared us to Illinois and that it was better in Illinois. I'm not kidding. That is the first time in 10 years I've heard someone say Illinois is actually better than us on this one. Because Illinois is a tire fire. Illinois.
Isn't that
what? Oh man, that place is so screwed up. Oh my goodness. You know, they were the first one to eliminate cash bonds. That's so stupid. That's going to be it already is proving to be a disaster.
Well,
sometimes just because it feels good doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. Just saying, that's smart.
It's coming. I mean, there's representatives that want to do it here. So
what?
Yeah, it's.
Let me guess, Ryan Clancy.
Yeah. Let's not
go down that. All right, so we're up against our time. I'm sorry, I think there's been a couple more questions, but we're not going to have time to get to it. For a wrap up, what do you have coming up this week? Obviously, we do this the last Thursday of every month. What's coming up over the next month? What do you think we'll be talking about next month? So what do you have coming up this week, and then what do you think we're talking about next month?
So what's going to come up in the next month actually started just a couple of days ago, and I'll keep it really brief. I'm on the Senate Committee on Elections, Shared Revenue, and something else, but the election side of it.
It's something else. I don't know.
I'm on so many committees. But we dealt with the reappointment of the Elections Commission Administrator, Megan Wolf. And so there is a lot of information, a lot of misinformation about the 2020 election, what WEC does or doesn't do, the WEC, the Wisconsin Election Commission, and what Administrator Wolf can or can't do or what she has or has not done. But regardless of that, she should be confirmed by the Senate when her term expires. So there is this gray area, supposedly, that since there's no vacancy because she didn't quit or die, she now is not subject to Senate confirmation, which is baloney. We should not have bureaucrats in office that can perpetually hold their seat with no oversight from the legislature. That was never our intent. And so whether you think Megan's done a good job or not, she should have to come before the Senate. So the Elections Commission, in their wisdom, said, well, there's no vacancy, so we're not going to vote to renominate her. So she's just going to sit in her office perpetually and never have to come before the Senate again, which, again, like I said, is just garbage. So it should concern everybody, Democrats or Republicans, especially those legislators and those who it floors me how they're willing to just hand their authority over to unelected commissions, unelected boards or bureaucrats, and just give up their authority that they have in that seat. So that's something we're going to have to address. We're going to have to fix. The Senate is plowing ahead. We are going to take a vote on her confirmation. We're going to get sued. Well, it'll litigate. It'll go in front of the Supreme Court, I'm sure. Yeah, why not, right? Because that's a great way to.
This was a story, so we put it in our. Yeah, this is the story that we put on, or one of our links every morning. We put U.S. World headline links and Wisconsin headline links. Just 5 stories that you should pay attention to in the world, and then 5 stories that are in Wisconsin that we think you might be interested in. They're all links to other people's websites, other news outlets' websites. And the first one here, this was from, I believe, WPR, if I recall, and the headline is Dems, Republicans spar over legitimacy of confirmation hearing for Elections Administrator Wolf. So I didn't read it. I just read the preview of it, and I put that up. I'm like, I don't know, people probably want to read that. I was going to get back to it, but again, kind of a late morning because it was a late night. So you're saying there's some misinformation. What is the misinformation part that you're aware of? Is it from media, or is it from, or not misinformation, but there's some information out there that may not be entirely accurate, I thought is what you said.
Right. So I don't know if there's misinformation. It's just there's the argument from the other side that says if your term in office expires, that doesn't mean it's actually vacant. So under state law, vacancy means something different. So since she quit, so even though in state statute, we clearly say that term of that administrator ends every 4 years in July of that year, and that you would have to be renominated and confirmed by the Senate, an expiration of a term doesn't actually create a vacancy. And so now she can just sit in there perpetually and never come before the Senate again unless the commission actually votes to can her. And so in my mind, by the Election Commission purposely deadlocking, actually 3 of them purposely voted absent or no vote. I can't remember. They abstained. Sure. Sorry, I can't think of the word.
Sure.
So 3 voted, yes, let's move her forward. It takes 4 votes to nominate her. 3 of them abstained, saying, no, she can just sit in her seat perpetually because we didn't technically take the vote to send her to the Senate. So those kinds of games are frustrating because you're purposely circumventing legislative intent. So whether you like Megan Wolf or not, or whoever the next administrator is, it's not even just about her. You should be upset that unelected boards get to circumvent the law and thumb their nose at the legislature. And so those are kinds of issues that shouldn't wind up in court. The law should be crystal clear, but it's incredibly difficult to draft legislation to predict how low some people are willing to go.
I was just going to ask, this has never happened before? I mean, there's no precedent. I mean, how did it get this far? We're in 2023. This is the first time this has happened. And someone said, that's really dumb. We should do something about this.
Well, we didn't create the commission until 6 years ago, 8 years ago.
Oh,
so no,
okay. Right.
The first time. But it's part of a larger problem I think we have trying to instill legislative oversight over our unelected bodies, unelected government that we have. And I think it's a bigger issue in D.C., but it's definitely an issue in Wisconsin as well. So that's going to be coming up. So we had the hearing, and then the committee will vote, and then it'll go before the Senate, which you'll see over the next month or two. I'm not sure how fast they'll move. So,
well, I'm so glad that you do your job, because I wouldn't want to do it. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, every part about your job just sucks. I mean, it sounds like it would. Like, there's... Wow.
Some days I don't want to do it either, but...
I don't know how anybody wants to do that job. Hey, oh, shoot. There's so many things. So this is what happens when we don't have an agenda. It just goes off the rails. But I do have to ask you real quick, quickly. Obviously, there was that Mitch McConnell. That was I felt so badly for that guy yesterday. He just kind of froze for like 30 seconds. That's the second time in a month that's happened. Obviously, this is Congress, not in Wisconsin. That was disheartening a little bit. Not disheartening, just I felt so bad for the guy. And we've seen this with President Biden. There's been some quote-unquote gaffes and can't get off a stage. And is there a mental deficiency there? I have no clue. But I do know that these people are just getting older. And we all know this. I don't know if this is necessarily a question about term limits. But do you think there should be like an age cutoff? Like, okay, after 70, you can't anymore. Or is this a term limit would solve that problem? Do you have any issue at all when you see this stuff? A lot of our senior citizens that have not just that they've been in office for a long time, but because of their advanced age, and you see, okay, they're not really as sharp as before, have some concerns, or is that, hey, then don't vote for them next time. That'll solve everything. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think we have to be very careful on just picking an arbitrary number.
Yeah.
I don't know if like some kind of a competency test comes into play, because I think our elderly populations offer a lot. They have a lot
more
to
than
offer
like
us.
I mean, with age comes wisdom. Seriously, it really does.
Not only in government, but in other things. So, but at some point you have to draw the line. You look at Senator Dianne Feinstein from California, and I remember, she was one of the hated liberals in the Senate, and she was so sharp, class act, even if you didn't like her. And now, just to see a picture of her, it's like,
I know.
Oof, and if people aren't capable of knowing when their time is come and gone, like maybe there doesn't need to be something on the books. Again, maybe not an arbitrary age, but
I know
some kind. There's 90-year-olds that are in better shape than me. So
that's a very good point. Yeah, you're right. I know, and it wasn't. We're trying to solve the problem here, or even if there is a problem, it was just kind of, I don't know. When I see this, I'm starting to think I feel badly for those individuals, but at the same time, they keep getting voted in. What was that one person? I think it was in Pennsylvania. I think that was a senator, wasn't it, in Congress this last election? He had like a stroke or a heart attack and all this, and you could tell but he got voted in. And maybe it is just up to the voters. Hey, it's you select whoever you want to select.
Well, before we go, I think the other part of the problem is we are so willing to either hold on to power or try to achieve power for our own side that we don't care who the candidate is. We have to win. It's a zero-sum game. We have to win. And so they're willing to, look over a lot of these things to gain power or to hold on to power. And you're right. Gay's only 55, so I don't know why she's worried about it.
Oh, term limits. Where do you stand on term limits? Because I'm actually fine with term limits, but people say, oh, you're a career politician, not you. Or maybe they do, I don't know. Like, I don't mind that. If someone is in because usually the longer you're in a job, the better you get at your job. I'm okay with that. But I guess I'd be
Sure.
okay, like if it was, I don't know, 8 years max in the House, but then you could go into the Senate. Like, I don't mind if you
Right.
stay in politics for a career, but maybe staying in one spot for too long wouldn't be good. Where do you stand on term limits?
So I think that was one of the first bills I introduced when I got elected to the assembly, was to allow, someone to serve so many terms in the assembly. Then you could serve so many years in the Senate if you wanted to. And then from there, if you wanted to be lieutenant governor, you could still do that, but it would time out at some point. So I could definitely see
I kind of like that,
more for the
actually.
executives. The only problem is when you do that to the legislature, and I've seen that now too, I am probably in the top half of experience in the legislature right now in terms of the turnover we've had and the people we've lost. And so I remember, like, when I first came in, there's a Representative Al Ott had been there for 30 years. Some of our longer term members, there wasn't many of them. But the nice part is they were kind of like the moral compass of the caucus. They could bring us back and say, hey, this isn't how we do things. And they could kind of help protect the institution, right? It's not all about arguing this and that. And they'd bring you back to a different time where things were different. And so the only thing when you do term limits is you really risk a little bit of having a steady rudder. Now, it shouldn't be 80% of the people there shouldn't be there for 30 years. But you do lose some of that continuity, the institutional knowledge. And then actually what I would argue is it gives more control to the agencies, to the bureaucrats who know, hey, I hate Scott Walker, but I know he's gone in 8 years. I'll just wait him out. Or I hate Romaine Quinn. He's only got 2 terms in the Senate. We'll wait him out, and then we'll do what we want to do again until he's gone.
Yeah.
So it almost empowers this bureaucratic state because they know they can wait your legislative leaders out at some point. So I support term
pros
limits.
and cons.
It's just how we do it. But no,
Mark's
Mark's right. You've got these people in here for 40 years, and
in the same job. That's probably enough. That's a little weird. You just do the Tom Tiffany approach. Like, he was in the Assembly, and then he was in the Senate. Now he's in Congress, and I'm sure he kicked around the idea of running for U.S. Senate.
yep.
So just everybody moves up, and and then the guy at the top is just retires. Perfect. Love it.
And that's fair too. Like for Congress, you give him 3 terms. Well, that means Tom couldn't run again after the next time. I love Tom. Like, I don't want to see him gone because we said.
Well, the term
6
limits
years
can't
and
be.
you're
It has to be different. Term limit for Assembly and term limit for Senate can't be the same number because it's 2 and 4 years in Wisconsin. So,
Right.
That's a little bit different. Like a
Yep.
2, I don't know. Yeah, anyway, while we're way past our time, man, this is so much fun. Going forward, we're not going to have an agenda anymore. This is great. We had some questions. Again, we didn't get to a couple of them. Sorry about that. Next month, try to get your questions a little sooner to make sure we can get to them. Romaine, anything you wanted to say before we wrap it up?
No, just reach out to our office anytime if you have questions. We're working on stuff now to gear up for the fall floor session.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Special thank you to Wisconsin's 25th Senate District Senator Romaine Quinn for joining us for a chat today. Thank you, everyone, for your questions as well. Barron County Sheriff Chris Fitzgerald and I will be back next Tuesday for another episode of Positive Tuesday with Ben and Fitzy. And 1 week from today, September 7th, I will be joined with Spooner Police Chief Mike Kronberger. Excuse me. So until then, for DrydenWare.com, I'm Ben Dryden saying thank you for watching, and as always, have a blessed day.